Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, I'm in the car right now and I'm on my way to pick up a whole computer for the big price of £2. So let's go and see what I'm getting. So here's the PC that I picked up. As you can see, it was used on quite a modern build at some point, but it's since had those parts swapped out. Can't see if there's any branding on the case, but it does seem to be of an okay quality. It's quite heavy. One of the USB ports has been mangled up, so I'll rip that out. But we're more interested in the insides anyway. Now the side panel came off with just a couple of thumb screws, so that was easy enough. And as you can see, I've added my own power supply in just so I can test everything, see how everything works. So from the looks of things, we've got a Foxconn motherboard, M80X. I do know already that it's socket 775. I think there's a dual core Celeron in there at the moment. And quite a nice CPU cooler, low profile one. Definitely not a stock Intel one. I believe that's 2 GB of DDR2 installed. Only 2 slots, so if I want to increase that, I'll have to get larger capacity sticks. There is also a DVD reader and writer, I believe, and a 250 GB hard drive. So the plans for this machine, I'm going to strip everything down, empty the case, give it a good clean, see how good I can get it to come up, and then rebuild it as it is, install Windows XP. I'll probably change out that hard drive for a solid state just for my own sanity. And then perhaps I'll do a second video where I can look to see what kind of upgrades I can do on the cheap. Always on a budget, of course. But I think for quite a small outlay, I can probably put together quite a nice Windows XP gaming machine. And I have just noticed the first bit of branding on this case, look, NZXT. So that would explain why it's definitely not a budget case, but I wouldn't call it high end, but it does have a solid feel to it. Probably deserves a better system inside it than this one, so eventually we might put something more modern inside it. But it'll be good enough for now for this restoration. Certainly with the socket 775 motherboard, we've got a lot of options on processors, and with the PCIe slot, obviously almost any graphics card can go in there, as long as we don't bottleneck it too much. Even got a floppy connector and an IDE connector, which is pretty much defunct with the SATA connectors below it, but it's still interesting to have. Obviously this was motherboard was from a period where we were just moving on from the IDE onto the SATA. The case does have quite a nice window to show off your shiny build inside, and a nice space for I think that's a 120mm fan, so that'll keep any graphics cards we choose to stick in there nice and cool. The case also has a door mechanism for hiding away the DVD drive, which is quite nice. The DVD drive is kind of falling inside because no screws holding it in right now, but I'm going to strip it all down anyway, so that doesn't really matter for now, as long as it doesn't fall onto anything. Coming round to the back, you can see we've got a floor mounted PSU, which is always nice to have. Certainly helps with the airflow. And we've got the rear IO shield. It's a personal bugbear of mine when I don't have one of these for a build. But yeah, it's looking nice, and I'm looking forward to getting on to restore it and clean it up, see what we can do with it. And so I'm back now with the PC much cleaner than it was. As you can see, I haven't really done anything to do with cable management. Don't really think there's too much point. The PSG cables are too short for a start, and a lot of these things are going to be coming out again when I do the second video with the upgrades. So I'm not too worried about the cable management, as long as everything is working, which it is. Managed to get Windows XP installed. Took quite a while to get some of the drivers. I was actually expecting it to be fairly easy with a more modern machine than I'm used to messing around with, but turns out it was quite difficult to get drivers. Fortunately, I was able to, searching for the chipset, I was able to get the drivers from Dell's website eventually. I was a little worried about perhaps Dell had locked them to only work on or only install on a Dell machine, but fortunately they did install just fine on here, which was good. As you can see from the desktop, I have already started to install some of the games to test. I've got a stack of the majority of them here. There is still a few more that I need to add. It's going to take me a little while to work through that pile, but I've been having quite a lot of fun with the ones I have installed and got to work. Definitely black and white. I think I spent nearly an hour testing that one, which you'll see later on in the video. The case did clean up pretty nicely. It's a very glossy kind of plastic. It does show all the finger marks and a lot of reflection, so it is quite hard to film, especially with extra lights in the room. But it has come up quite nice. Definitely deserving of a more powerful build at some point. but it was part of this purchase, so we'll use it for now. Now I've got everything set up on my little test bench area. I'm going to carry on installing and working my way through the stack of games that I need to test out, and hopefully get everything up on a spreadsheet, what runs, what doesn't run, so that when I do come to do some upgrades, we can see, you know, how much it's improved. And I've already got one of the upgrades in store, and that actually cost nothing. So I'm just on the lookout now for the second one. Hopefully I can get some sort of bargain and keep this a very low cost PC that can run hopefully a good range of Windows XP games. And then I guess I do need to address this part, because obviously this PC didn't come with a power supply. Now, I've done plenty of builds, bought plenty of entire machines before and parted them out. Probably could have ended up with a free power supply. This one itself did only cost me £10, so if I wanted to include it as part of this build, it would still only take it up to £12, which is still not a lot for a pretty capable Windows XP machine, or at least I hope so. So I'm going to carry on installing from my big stack of games, and I'll bring you back once I've got some results. So on the screen I've got all the games I tested and the notes I've written down about that game. If this in green, obviously it ran great with no problems. Yellow I would still consider playable, but red, either something stopped the game from running or it was just way too slow to be any sort of enjoyable. So as you can see, it looks like most games between 01 and 04 you can run. The exception to that being Far Cry. It had graphical glitches, a lot of textures weren't loading in, and even if they did, it was as soon as you went somewhere outside, the FPS dropped to single digits, so it definitely wasn't playable. There's a couple of games on there as well, Dawn of War and Fallout 3, both complained about not having hardware transform and lighting. Dawn of War did run in safe mode without it, but Fallout 3 wouldn't run at all. Overall, I am quite impressed really for the built-in graphics. They've never been known to be great, but they do. There is a lot of games that you could play on this system. Obviously you do have to be aware of its limits. But in my next video, I will be upgrading it with a better CPU and a dedicated GPU as well. Hopefully I can get those on a budget, keep the whole build costs down. That's the whole point of this after all. And I'll take the games that are in yellow or red and run them again, see if I can get them into a playable state. I'll also run the benchmarks again, see if we can get much improvement there and how much we can get. So if you managed to make it this far, thank you for watching my video. If you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing, that'd be great. And I'll see you in part 2. Thank you.